Hello, I'm Marianne. I'm a storyteller, and over here is Teddy. And we live in a little house at the end of a lane at the top of a very windy hill in Bangor, County Down. And we thought while everybody has to stay at home so much to stay safe, that we'd share some stories with you while we're all doing that. So today we're going to start with a story about the little red hen. Now I'm sure you know all about the little red hen, but I found a version of it that was written as a poem, not the story we usually hear. And I found it in this book called Side by Side, Poems to Read Together. And it says inside that the story was written by Anonymous, which means we don't know who wrote it. But here it is for you to enjoy. So Teddy, are you listening? We'll start. And it's called The Mouse, the Frog, and the Little Red Hen. Once a mouse, a frog, and a little red hen together kept a house. The frog was the laziest of frogs, and lazier still was the mouse. The work all fell on the little red hen, who had to get the wood and build the fires and scrub and cook and sometimes hunt the food. One day, as she went scratching around, she found a bag of rye. Said she, "Now, who will make some bread?" Said the lazy mouse, "Not I." "Nor I," croaked the frog as he drowsed in the shade. Red Hen made no reply, but flew around with bowl and spoon and mixed and stirred the rye. "Who'll make the fire to bake the bread?" said the mouse again. "Not I." And scarcely opening his sleepy eyes, Frog made the same reply. The little red hen said never a word, but a roaring fire she made, and while the bread was baking brown, "Who set the table?" she said. "Not I," said the sleepy frog with a yawn. "Nor I," said the mouse again. So the table she set and the bread put on. "Who'll eat this bread?" said the hen. "I will," cried the frog. "And I," squeaked the mouse, as they near the table drew. "Oh, no, you won't," said the little red hen, and away with the loaf she flew. Well, Teddy, don't you think they should have helped out a little bit? You know, I'm glad you always help me when we have some baking to do. Now, I found a story about some noisy little chickens, which is another little rhyme, really. So I'm going to find it for you. It's in the same book. It's on page 37. And this one's also by Anonymous. I'll show you the pictures. There it is. 5 little chickens. Maybe we'll watch these the whole time. Said the first little chicken with a queer little squirm, "I wish I could find a fat little worm." Said the second little chicken with an odd little shrug, "I wish I could find a fat little slug." Said the third little chicken with a sharp little squeal, "I wish I could find some nice yellow meal." Said the fourth little chicken with a small sigh of grief, "I wish I could find a little green leaf." Said the fifth little chicken with a faint little moan, "I wish I could find a wee gravel stone." "Now see here," called the mother from the green garden patch, "if you want any breakfast, you just come here and scratch." Well, we have some of those chickens right here. And you see, can you hear them? You can hear them scratching. There they are. Are they all there? Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And when I make the little table shake and it's there Now you can find it. So let's try and say that little rhyme again with the chickens. There we go. Have we got it right? There it is. Ah, that's better. Said the first little chicken with a queer little squirm, I wish I could find a fat little worm. Said the next little chicken with an odd little shrug, I wish I could find a fat little slug. Said the third little chicken with a sharp little squeal, I wish I could find some nice yellow meal. Said the fourth little chicken with a small sigh of grief, I wish I could find a little green leaf. Said the fifth little chicken with a faint little moan, I wish I could find a wee gravel stone. Now see here, said the mother, from the green garden patch, if you want any breakfast, you just come here and scratch. And there we go. And I think they're finding plenty to eat. So, Teddy, what were you saying? Oh, I haven't forgotten the story you really want to hear. Teddy loves all the Beatrix Potter stories. Well, they are brilliant stories, but I think he likes them also because, look, they're just the right size for him to hold. The one we're going to have today is This Tale of Benjamin Bunny. So there you are. Can everybody see? The Tale of Benjamin Bunny, written by Beatrix Potter. But oh my goodness, is somebody else here as well? Is that Peter Rabbit? Peter, you were in the story yesterday. So I tell you what, why don't you sit over there with Teddy and you can have a listen as well. So there he is. So the Tale of Benjamin Bunny. One morning, a little rabbit sat on a bank. He pricked his ears and he listened to the trit-trot of a pony. A gig was coming along the road. It was driven by Mr. McGregor, and beside him sat Mrs. McGregor in her best bonnet. As soon as they had passed, little Benjamin Bunny slid down into the road and set off with a hop, skip, and a jump to call upon his relations who lived in the woods at the back of Mr. McGregor's garden. Now you've met those relations before. That wood was full of rabbit holes, and in the neatest, sandiest hole of all lived Benjamin's aunt and his cousins, Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. Old Mrs. Rabbit was a widow. She earned her living by knitting rabbit wool mittens and muffetees. She also sold herbs and rosemary tea and rabbit tobacco, which is what we call lavender. Little Benjamin did not very much want to see his aunt. He came around the back of the fir tree and nearly tumbled upon the top of his cousin Peter. Peter was sitting by himself. He looked poorly. He was dressed in a red cotton handkerchief. Peter, said little Benjamin in a whisper, who has your clothes? Peter replied, the Scarecrow in Mr. McGregor's garden, and he described how he'd been chased about the garden and had dropped his shoes and coat. Little Benjamin sat down beside his cousin and assured him that Mr. McGregor had gone out, and Mrs. McGregor also, and certainly for the day, because she was wearing her best bonnet. Peter said he hoped it would rain. At this point, old Mrs. Rabbit's voice was heard inside the rabbit hole calling, Cottontail, Cottontail, fetch some more chamomile. Peter said he thought he might feel better if he went for a walk. They went away hand in hand and got upon the flat top of the wall at the bottom of the wood. and from here they looked down into Mr. McGregor's garden. Peter's coat and shoes were plainly to be seen upon the scarecrow, topped with an old tam o' shanter of Mr. McGregor's. Little Benjamin said, "It spoils people's clothes to squeeze under a gate. The proper way to get in is to climb down a pear tree." Peter fell down head first, but it was of no consequence, as the bed was newly raked and quite soft. It had been sown with lettuces. They left a great many little footmarks all over the bed, especially little Benjamin, who was wearing clogs. Little Benjamin said that the first thing to be done was to get back Peter's clothes, in order that they might be able to use the pocket handkerchief. They took them off the scarecrow. There had been rain during the night. There was water in the shoes, and the coat was somewhat shrunk. Benjamin tried on the tam o' shanter, but it was too big for him. And then he suggested that they should fill the pocket handkerchief with onions as a little present for his aunt. Peter did not seem to be enjoying himself. He kept hearing noises. Benjamin, on the contrary, was perfectly at home and ate a lettuce leaf. He said that he was in the habit of coming to the garden with his father to get lettuces for their Sunday dinner. The name of little Benjamin's papa was Old Mr. Benjamin Bunny, and the lettuces certainly were very fine. Peter did not eat anything. He said he should like to go home, and presently he dropped half the onions. Little Benjamin said it wasn't possible to get back up the pear tree with a load of vegetables, so he led the way boldly towards the other end of the garden. They went along a little walk on planks under a sunny red brick wall. The mice sat on their doorsteps, cracking cherry stones, and they winked at Peter Rabbit and little Benjamin Bunny. And presently, Peter let go the pocket handkerchief again. They got amongst flower pots and frames and tubs. Peter heard noises worse than ever. His eyes were as big as lollipops. He was a step or two in front of his cousin when he suddenly stopped. And this is what those little rabbits saw round that corner. Do you see what they saw? Little Benjamin took one look, and then, in half a minute less than no time, he hid himself and Peter and the onions underneath a large basket. The cat got up and stretched herself and came and sniffed at the basket. Perhaps she liked the smell of onions. Anyway, she sat down on the top of the basket. And she sat there for 5 hours. I cannot show you a picture of Peter and Benjamin under the basket because it was quite dark, and because the smell of onions was fearful. It made Peter Rabbit and little Benjamin cry. The sun got around behind the wood, and it was quite late in the afternoon, but still the cat sat upon the basket. At length there was a pitter-patter, pitter-patter, and some bits of mortar fell from the wall above. The cat looked up and saw old Mr. Benjamin Bunny prancing along the top of the wall of the upper terrace. He was smoking a pipe of rabbit tobacco and had a little switch in his hand. He was looking for his son.